Welcome to Art Kitchen. I'm Mo Golden, and you're gonna love my guest today. Scout Tran Caffee, an interdisciplinary artist and two-time Eisner Award nominee. Her comic Failing Sky was included in NPR's list of web comics to keep you clicking in January 2016. You can find it and fund it at failingsky.com/Patreon. Scout holds a BFA and MFA in fine art and works not only with comics, but music, puppetry, and street games. She's one of the few tenacious working artists still remaining in San Francisco. You can check her out online at villainette.com. This is only part one of 2 videos, so come on back for more in a couple weeks. Thanks so much for agreeing to meet with me.
You're welcome. Thanks for asking me.
Yeah, totally. So has art always been a central part of your life, or were there kind of like moments of realization or decision about being an artist?
I think it's been a pretty central thing forever. I remember being in art class in junior high, or earlier, probably art class in elementary school, and being like this, knowing that this was the thing. So.
And what was that thing?
Visual art, painting, watercolors actually, because that's what they give you first when you're a kid. And I still do watercolors, that's my main thing. Yeah.
Do you remember what that felt like?
Yeah, the teacher was telling me that I was doing it wrong, and I felt bad.
And you were like, yeah, this is my thing.
I didn't realize that later in life I would really want to feel bad more. That I would own the badness. You have a really good cackle there.
Oh man. And then how did that identity or commitment to art evolve with you over time?
It's evolved a lot, and not really unpredictably or sporadically. There's been like, it feels like it's all been going in one direction. But yeah, I changed mediums so many times going through school. Yeah. Do you want the gory details?
Sure. Yeah. Some gore.
What? How far back do I go? I guess the simple quick story is that I went into college, junior college, doing painting, and by the time I exited, and then now I'm doing comics. So I guess I've come full circle, sort of. But I went from painting to installation to performance art to puppetry to street game design to maybe through that doing a bit of music. And then wrapped back around to painting again in the end to do comics.
And when you're working on, like, in one medium, are you also engaging in other art forms at the same kind of phase in your life, or do you feel really committed to the one medium that you're working in?
I guess that's been the problem, is trying to, because I'm always working on all of them, sort of, but just like focusing on one. And the problem has been like trying to figure out how to reduce my lifestyle to something simple and manageable when I'm like, I want to do music and the puppetry and the street games all at once. And then I'm like, wait, this would be so much easier if I could just do one project that embodied all of those things.
Yeah.
That never happened. No, yeah.
And where does the like impulse to create in one medium feel different than the impulse to create in the other? Like, are they feeding different parts of yourself?
They are very different, yeah, and feeding different parts of myself. I guess they're all feeding the creativity demon monster. But yeah.
And yours is very hungry.
The satisfaction that I get out of playing music feels much different, has a different role in my survival than the satisfaction I get out of running games, street games, which is much less intuitive, but it's much more like heady, that one, and long term, whereas music is just like sing that song, play it, and I get immediate gratification, don't even have to like show it to anybody, that sort of stuff. And painting maybe in between somewhere, but they like feel like different sections of my life. They definitely have a different effect. Yeah, I don't, it's hard to, I like to draw analogies between like this part of painting and this part of music feel kind of the same. But really they feel essentially like very different things with very different roles and functions and whatever, because of the because of the way that the rhythm of the media works, I guess. Music is temporal, painting is flat. Street games are experiential. They're just like totally different experiences.
Right. Yeah. And do you feel like working in different mediums at the same phase in your life brings some sort of like self-integration or bringing multiple parts of yourself together? Or does it feel really separate?
I guess my problem with all this stuff is that I really want it to all feed together, and for me to be able to lace them all together into like one project that is manageable.
Yeah.
That's really why I got into puppetry, because as a theater form, you can do a lot of different media together in one little chunk, like throw in the musical score and you get to build the things and paint them and do the backdrops and then the performance part. And if you're really crazy, you can do audience interaction with puppets. But that's always forced. I haven't found like an easy way to make, like an obvious way to make that happen. Like, I don't know. One of the reasons I got into puppetry was because I felt too, is schizophrenic the right word? I felt too like scattered. All of my art practices had nothing to do with each other. And puppetry was just like forcing them all to have something to do with each other.
Yeah.
It didn't totally work.
Is that, so you're talking about like this kind of struggle in your creative process. Does that feel like a personal struggle, or like you're working with something larger than yourself? Does that question make sense?
Oh, what we're talking about right now as a struggle is strictly a tactical struggle, I think, just to like make sure that I have enough time in the day to like pull things off. But maybe your question is asking more about like an emotional, larger picture struggle about like being creative and expressing. That struggle, I think, is consistent through all of these things, like trying to figure out where the muse is, how to tap the creature of creativity or whatever, and make it do what you want instead of whatever, can I swear on this?
Yeah.
Whatever the fuck it wants to do, out of your control. Yeah.
Yeah. And how have your reasons or motivations changed over time for creating, like since you were in middle school until now?
Wow. One of the motivations, which has been pretty consistent, which I am continually trying to address in all this artwork in this really weird way, is that I feel pressured to make art by people who are outside of the art world. I mean, at first in junior high, I'm in a classroom of all these people who don't feel like artists, and they single me and a couple of other people out who can draw at an early age, you know, and they're like, you're totally going to be like the artist in the class. And whether or not I actually liked art at that point, I was peer pressured into studying it further, which perpetuated this thing of actually like studying it for real.
Yeah.
And it was not until like, you know, my early 20s that I realized that like, when I started to like change majors and stuff like that, I was like, oh, painting actually isn't satisfying. It's not what I love. It's just happened to be all what I studied.
Yeah.
You know, all through high school and college and whatever. Did I lose the question? Oh my God.
Your motivations.
Yeah.
I don't think you lost it.
No. So that was an early motivation, and it's still a pretty strong motivation. Is people in my life who are not artists expecting me to do the creative thing, or especially like do the visual art, the 2D visual art thing that they need in their life, or that they want to see in the world or whatnot. And in reality, I'm, you know, fighting that pretty often, being like, yes, I'm working as an illustrator and doing that fairly proficiently now, but that's not actually what I want to be doing in my free time. So please don't ask me to do like, you know, that classically, you know, not classically, but like, what's it called? You know that word, that annoying word. When someone asks you to do a painting for free for the love of it for them because they think that you just like love making art that much.
You're an artist, right?
Right? You love to do this, you'll do it for free. Yeah, I'm an artist by profession, not by, I mean, like I'm an illustrator.
Plumber. Come over and do some, like, fix my toilet for me. You love this, right?
I love the plumbing analogy because I actually plumbing is fun in this weird way where art is not fun. This is getting sidetracked. I actually do like art.
Yeah. So besides like the external pressure, what are the internal motivations and impulses?
There's a lot of them, and it would be doing a little injustice to be like there's like one or two that I can list. So that said, the peer pressure is big, and then a yearning, like personally, internally, a yearning for satisfaction, just like a payoff. I think possibly my family may have like a gambling problem, hereditarily sort of thing. Like I have to be very careful about playing games because I get really competitive about win scenarios and how to play them, how to game things. I don't know, to get the best outcome instead of enjoying games for their journey.
Yeah.
And I do the same thing with art. Like with big projects, I'm really just doing all this work so that I can get one big dopamine payoff at the end. And then, you know, before I have time to like come down from that, start a new project to like ramp up for another like satisfying completion of a project. Yeah, and so those are the big things, and they're really unglamorous. Like the things I think that most people like to think about when they're talking about satisfaction from creativity are like that. Maybe what I get more from music, more from like playing an individual song, is just like a satisfaction from invoking some ephemeral, ethereal spirit through music into the world.
Yeah.
That I do very little, but it's so good. I need to do it more. I get wrapped up in this whole like large project thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's very much like work for you, it sounds like.
Yes, it's all work. It's all turned into work. That, yeah. That's the problem of being a professional artist.
Yeah.
Turning your love into money. Although the exchange rate is horrible.
So working in, you know, these various disciplines, when you start a project, do you have an idea of like what you want it to be and you just kind of execute, or are you discovering it as you go and allowing it to be revealed to you, or maybe both?
I guess honestly the answer is both. The stronger force in me is to try and execute perfectly an idea that I have, which is hard because it really cuts off the creative process. If you have like a complete idea, you're like wait around for epiphany to happen, drink lots of coffee, wait for the epiphany to happen, have the epiphany, you're like, I really want to see this thing in the world, and then you spend 6 months making it. And that's really what illustration is, what I trained in, is to like, you know, be given a direction, be given the parameters, and then just like hit it as hard and as closely as you can to those parameters. And then on the other hand, like I also do watercolor as like my main medium, which is traditionally or famously watercolor is notoriously the medium where you have to give up all this control and just like let chemistry lead you.
Yeah.
And I love that part of it, probably because I'm so like otherwise so strict about what I'm doing illustratively. And it is kind of fun to try and control this uncontrollable medium, where it's just like I will do whatever I want, and I'm like, no, I'm gonna use the expensive brush today, and you're going to do what I want you to do. Yeah. So. Yeah, with the illustration thing, with a lot of these big long-term projects, I'm really trying to like, or I get trapped in this thing of just trying to execute the thing as perfectly as possible. And I am trying really hard these days to interject more free creativity into that sort of stuff. But I'm still so far removed from the other types of artists, I guess, who like do R&D style development for huge amounts of time and then just like wrap it at the end and produce something visible. I don't know. That can't keep me going. Like I don't love that enough. I mean, it's beautiful and fun and stuff, but there's not like that promise of reward because you don't know for like 6 months of working on like, you know, a movement dance performance whether or not you'll even have anything at the end. You're just like, this looks like shit still. We've been working on this for 5 months and it still looks like shit. And you're just like, please, we perform, we show this thing, we open in like a week. Please let it come together. And it always comes together. But, you know, I don't have that kind of faith.
Well, and it sounds like too what you're saying is the joy for you is in like the product at the end and the satisfaction at the end. And some people really do like cherish the process and have patience, and then the result doesn't really matter to them at the end. Yeah. And so I can see how like it'd be easier to have faith if you weren't so result oriented. And it sounds like you are, and that's like where the joy is. So you're working towards that.
Yep. But you know what's really kind of funny is I think the reason, I mean, besides the addiction to product that I have, I think one of the reasons why I have fallen into that rhythm is because you can promise a client something and then deliver it. But that is getting turned on its head now with micro donations and patronization and stuff, where people are actually, like, philanthropists are more interested in supporting your process and seeing you work than actually like seeing your finished product, because they don't care what you sell at the gallery at the end or whatever, wherever.
Right. They want to be like inside your process. And
yeah, they want to like be voyeurs or something. What is that? To live vicariously through you as an artist, which is creepy, but whatever sells. Shouldn't say that's creepy. It's a perfectly legitimate way to go about things. So maybe if I'm driven by money, I hope I'm not, but I guess I kind of am, then I might start making more stuff that's, I mean, I've seen myself do it. As soon as I launched my first Kickstarter, I started documenting process instead of results. And that definitely influenced like how I approach my own art practice, because I have to stop every day, at intervals, and post about it, and update philanthropists, what are they called? Patrons. Update my patrons. So then I have to like, craft these like mini projects for them. And I guess those are all like small little end goals, but in some way, yeah. It's like.
Is that reflection useful for you besides like doing it for, the outside viewer? Like, is that useful for you, or does it feel like it kind of is derailing your process?
It's totally derailing. Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it because patrons love that process so much.
Yeah.
And it is kind of fun to like post about process. But yeah, like, I mean, now I'm like more into the rhythm, and I've made the updates smaller. Basically, I'm like doing more Instagram-y things instead of, posting like involved YouTube videos about like, here's what I did today in time lapse, fully edited and with music behind it. Now I'm just like, I stop for like, I don't know, I can burn a lot of time composing an Instagram photo though, just to like, I'll be like, oh, okay, new camera angle, no, change the lighting, okay, no, shoot it a bunch of times, go into Photoshop, edit the shit out of it. Okay, slap some filters, make it look like the filters don't exist. Okay, now format it for Instagram and then post it, and just like lose like 45 minutes out of my working day just to like post this update. But that's better than like losing 2 days to making a YouTube video that 75 people watch.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, totally derailing. And I don't know if I get very much out of that, because I mean, it's interesting and useful for me to show, to like do tutorials and demos of like my working process, because it slows me down mentally, and it makes me really think about what is going, like why I make these decisions. But it's kind of like it destroys. I don't know. It definitely makes it really hard for me to remember where I'm going.
Yeah.
If I stop all the time and try to figure out where it is.
Yeah, and you lose the momentum.
Lose the momentum, but also like, it's just like if you think about how you walk, or like asking the centipede how it walks, and it suddenly losing the ability to walk.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think about, when I'm just like, I know where I want to be, and then my hands just like make the thing. I don't think about it at all. It's just like a subconscious things running that I don't have to pause. and look at and address or open Schrodinger's box or whatever. It's all messy. Anyway, the perfect example is I was doing cardboard sculptures that are they're like applique. They're, how would I just, I've had to describe this so many times, like the way that the cardboard sculptures look, but they're like bits of cardboard like layered like a shell to form a form, as opposed to how a lot of cardboard artists work, which is from the inside out or with cross sections and then building off of that. So I just like, I've done a lot of like clay sculpture and a lot of illustration and all that sort of stuff, and I'll like skip a lot of these intermediary mechanical steps, which usually help you fabricate small things to large things. Like if I was to go from a maquette to a larger build, I'll just do it intuitively and accept a little bit of, accept the mistakes that I make, accept a little bit of proportional change.
Yeah.
Whereas most people who are working in that sort of industry will do it very calculated mechanically, so that they know that, you know, the client asked for this thing and they're going to scale it up and it's going to be exactly like it was, which I think is less interesting in this day and age because you can really just automate that stuff now.
Yeah, you don't need an artist to do that kind of work.
Yeah, although as I'm finding out, like CNC is really expensive, and manual labor, even from high-paid artists, is really cheap. So yeah, I was working on a project this last year, and we were considering, or the artist in it was considering doing like a foam CNC build of the whole thing, which we thought would be super easy, and it was I don't know, 10 times the price of hiring 3 or 4 of us for the entire summer.
Wow.
To just like hack the thing out of cement. Yeah, that was crazy. Anyway, so with this cardboard stuff, I skip this really weird structural step and I just go for the shell, and I don't ever think about what I'm doing there. I just instinctively just start like cutting these very particular trapezoids and triangles and strips and stuff, and start assembling them as I need as I'm going along the sculpture. And then for the Exploratorium, for instance, I was like making a pair of scissors, and I just like started at one end of the scissors, built the handles, you know, and then like kept going and built like the blades of the scissors, because I guess, you know, after all of this illustration training, I just had like an intuitive understanding of like, this is how big this will be at this section. I don't really have to like measure out a 6-foot scissor. I know it's going to be 6 feet at the end, give or take a couple of inches. But then when I tried to go into the Exploratorium and teach their students, the teenagers that we had going through how to work in cardboard, it just like blew my mind, like how to break down sculpting in cardboard in a way that didn't just like didn't skip all those steps.
Right.
And I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I was like,
so much is happening like not in the conscious verbal center.
Yeah. I was like, oh my God, in order to sculpt in this way, you really do have to train in figurative illustration for 10 years. Like there isn't like a shorthand version of that. So I was like, okay, well, I'll teach you how to sculpt in cardboard, but it really isn't like how I sculpt in cardboard.
Yeah.
I'm going to teach you basically how you know, other artists sculpt in cardboard, and I had to like go and research how do other people build in this medium, because it's so different from how I do it. Anyway, what was the question?
So it sounds like a lot of your like early process and your early training was working at this kind of essential level that has allowed you to branch out from a center place, so that you don't have to relearn a lot of these techniques like a lot of people would.
Yeah, what was really hilarious is and I don't know if this is really true, but someone was asking me how I learned to cook, and I was like, well, I kind of did it by learning how to draw and sculpt and then applying that to food, which didn't work out so well because my palate is kind of shitty. But yeah, like so much of how I'm handling all these like disparate media is because I studied something specific really hardcore in my early 20s, and then just like apply that to everything. Like I'm not going to relearn those basics.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
But I think that was a good investment to just like study one thing really deeply and then apply it to everything. But then on the other hand, it doesn't work for everything. Yeah, but I do recommend that as a cute little way to like approach fabrication.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So you were talking about the coffee high epiphany.
Yes.
Are there other ways that you receive inspiration or creative content?
I don't meditate, but I do a lot of problem solving while driving or walking, which is really just putting me in a meditative state. So like, I don't have a car anymore, and I haven't for many years, but I kind of try to schedule myself to take road trips with people and volunteer to do the driving. And it always takes a little bit to like explain to them that I'm asking to drive the entire trip, not because I want, not
to be a
because
martyr.
not to be a martyr, not because that has anything to do with the touring whatever thing, but just because like this year I haven't had a couple hundred hours behind the wheel, and I need that in order to come up with new ideas. But then other ways, what are the other ways that happens? If I'm doing a build, and this is really specific to working in 3D, is that if I'm doing a build that's a couple of months long, I will focus on the point where I'm waking up or falling asleep, and just let my mind go for that 15 minutes. And most of my building gets done, like with my head on the pillow, staring at the ceiling in those 15 minutes, falling asleep and waking up. And I talked to an accordion builder, and he said the exact same thing. He was like, yeah, there's like something going on in that.
Yeah, the liminal
Yes, is
space.
that what it's called? But it's so funny that doesn't work for me with music or with 2D or whatever. It may be a little bit with game design, but it's like really specific to like if I'm trying to build a mechanism for a puppet.
Interesting.
I'll just like build a bunch of aesthetic things, shells and whatnot for the puppet, and then I'll like attack the mechanism very briefly, and then fall asleep, or and then like do my nighttime ritual, fall asleep, wake up in the morning, and then finish it.
Yeah.
Because I can't trust myself to solve those kinds of problems in the waking world. Like I've got to sleep on that.
Right. Yeah, that's really interesting.
So coffee, long drives, and the liminal space between sleeping and waking.
Great. That's very...
Yeah. And the other thing is momentum in conversation, talking to people, which I use very little, and I should be using that more because really cool ideas come out of that. But that's just like you bounce an idea off of somebody or whatever, and then you just like build up reverberation around that idea for a while. Like we did that a little bit over that thing.
We came up with some real good ideas.
And you just, what is that, think tanking with somebody or brainstorming. So just a little bit of tea, an afternoon alone, get a couple of people around a table who are creatives and just like dive into something crazy with them. And maybe it turns into a project or maybe it doesn't, but if you do it enough times, you have a lot of creative material to just run with.
Yeah. So where do you think that creative content is coming from?
Going for the deep spiritual questions. Whoa. I don't know these days. I don't have as many creative ideas, I guess, now as I used to, or I don't know where they're coming from. It feels like these days I'm problem solving, so I'm like, I have these parameters for this project. I need this project to fulfill these things, and then I just like break it down into what I need to execute for that to happen, and just like, brute force my way through it in tiny little chunks, like solving these small problems that will eventually lead up to solving the big problem.
Yeah.
And that feels like that's coming from me personally. Like I'm just like calculatingly, mathematically doing the creative work.
Yeah.
But the like in my youth, I was really enamored by this feeling of that there was a machine within me somewhere spiritually or just like processes of my brain that I did not have access to, that were just like churning the stuff out. And that, my conscious brain was, myself, my ego, was just like riding on top of that and reaping the benefits of this thing. And so for a long time I was just trying to figure out how to access that material.
Yeah.
Because, like, you fall asleep, you have a bunch of dreams, you wake up, you write them down, I was just like blown away by the all the information that was just being dumped at me from what must be some sort of subconscious thing that just seemed like, infinitely more powerful than what I had access to in waking life. And I'd spent all this time trying to be like, well, how do I access that consciously, intentionally when I need it? Basically, how do you call the muse when you need it, when like the client is calling or whatever, or you have to pay your rent or something and you really need something, like how do you get into that? And I guess, over the years I lost the magical perspective on that. It doesn't feel like magic anymore. It just feels like, okay, hit myself with a coffee. Stare at a blank canvas until it comes out, It's not like playing with sleep and dreams anymore. Yeah.
So when you were in school, and maybe still, when people are like recognizing that you're an artist, and that part of what they're recognizing is like technical ability, do you think that there's something else there? Do you think there's something unique to artistically inclined people that other people don't have, or do you think it is just a development of skill?
Well, maybe a bit about me is that I've always been the person with the skill, the talent, and not the person with the duende, with the dark, intriguing charisma. So most of my life I've been teaming up with people who will fulfill that, and I'll be the technical director, on art projects to supplement the artistic director. Which is, annoying too, because as much as duende is beautiful and compelling, I don't know, as much as I want to believe in it, a lot of the time it's fluff. So I followed a lot of people, I think, that had charisma but nothing to back it with.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know how much is like, then I got into this idea of like, if I'm so good at learning these skills, is it possible to break down, I'm looking for a different word, to break down duende basically into its real world components and execute it as if it were a skill, which is at once scary to me, but also I'm like, Japan's been doing it for hundreds of years in their approach to the creative method. It probably isn't any more weird than that.
To like systematize inspiration.
Yeah, or to systematize duende, to systematize the ephemeral, to systematize magic, basically. Like, you look at no theater, I guess, and I'm kind of speaking outside of my area of expertise in this, but
Great. Welcome to America.
Right? Oh my God, appropriate everything. So you look at no theater and you see these actors do these movements and say these words with so much power that it just feels like they're invoking something from beyond or something more powerful than humans should be able to. And then you look at their at the no theater training method and you're like, oh, it wasn't like how we do it in the West. It's not like you find someone with great talent and then you like nurture them. Like in no theater, you find somebody and then you teach them for 30 years how to do this thing. And at the end, when they're, like in the autumn of their life, they just have that much skill in that. Anyway, that's the way that I approach it. I'm sure that people who are in no have a more magical feel about it. But I'm like, that seems like what's going on there. That seems like I could actually, learn how to replace the artistic director, basically. That was a tangent, though. What was the question?
I don't remember.
I just like the idea of replacing the creative force with brute force. It just feels so wrong, so villainous.
Oh, I remember the question was about like what people are recognizing as the artist, and if that's something unique to artists, or if it's in everyone, or if it really is just like technical skill.
So telling that really big long story was just to explain my view of, like, you know, when you look at kids and you describe them as artists or not artists, I think you're describing two different classes of people: the technicians and the people with the really great magical creativity.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I've at an early age was being described as an artist, as a technician. People were like, that kid knows how to draw. They're an artist. And I was like, okay, I'm an artist. I guess I should learn creativity. And that, I guess, maybe I should have stuck to one thing. I mean, I think it's been great that I went through art school, and these days, or at least in that era, art school was just to teach you how to develop your creativity and not to teach you how to develop your technique. So I was like, okay, I've got some drawing skill. I can synthesize real world information into 2D planes and whatnot. I'll go to school for this. And I hit school. I should have gone to technical training for, I don't know, illustration, but I went into painting, which is high art, you know, gallery stuff. So I didn't learn any technical stuff. All I learned was creativity tools, and had to just deal with that, how to learn that stuff. Which is funny and interesting. I don't know. But yeah, if someone had more correctly identified me as a kid and been like, that is clearly not an artist. That kid is an illustrator, or that kid is some sort of weird hands-on technician or something with an element of, you know, sporadic creativity, but not the type of creativity that we really love in this culture, like that maverick, crazy, magical thing, Van Gogh-ish sort of thing, where you're like, that person is going to die a young death and we're going to make millions of dollars off of their really wild ideas. That wasn't me.
Fortunately. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about your choice to go to art school. You have a BFA and an MFA. What was the background of your decision to go the academic route with your art, and what did you get out of it, and how has that influenced your art career?
Whoa. Well, I would say that from a young age, from junior high and onward, people were expecting me to go into the art field, to study painting specifically. And so that I just never questioned. Leaving high school, I never questioned the need to go to college for art, as much as it sucks and as expensive as it is, and how bleak your future looks. From leaving high school, and all of your friends, I grew up in Silicon Valley, so all of my friends were going off to become engineers and captains of industry, and I was like, and then I'm going to go over here with one or two of us and you know, go to art school and basically doom ourselves for life, because this is what we're supposed to do because we're artists. Which was, I'm so bitter about that. I mean, laughably bitter, but you can see it in every interview I've given, in every thing I've written about art. It just unintentionally I say something like that. And I'm like, yeah, I hate the idea of that I was pushed into studying art. But you know, I'm an artist. I love it, right? Whatever. I just wish I was paid more.
Right. Yeah. It's more. It feels like, just from what you're saying, it sounds like it's not so much objecting to being an artist or doing the work. It's the role that takes in society, and that means you're over here and that you're doomed and all that stuff.
Yeah,
that's definitely superimposed on you.
Yep. Whoops. Oh my God. So yeah, the decision to go to college for me was unquestioned until I started to I was probably already finished with my master's before I really seriously questioned the need to go to art school. So yeah, I just did it. I took it as you know, just one of the assumptions of being an artist. I didn't really realize that you could be an artist without going to school for it. And you know, kind of As someone who's gone through the system, I have a lot of judgment for art school and the money that you invest in it and what you actually get out of it. But still, actually, I could not imagine myself being an artist without that training, without having gone through that stuff. And I see a lot of my friends. I don't know who these friends I'm talking about though are. I see some
Imaginary ones validate your point.
Yes, those ones. So, friends. I see people, I know a lot of people who didn't go through art school, who do make art, and I look at the stuff that they make, and it's very much not art school art, I guess, you know, for better or for worse, but there is something nice about being an outsider when you're in a creative field, but there's also something like, I see people make lots of mistakes that in the execution of artworks, in even just like the creative process, where I'm like, had you gone to art school and paid $40,000, you probably would have gotten that one lesson, you know, in that one class from that one mentor that would have saved you from that thing that you just did, that you just like blew a year on, or something, right? So there is like, as expensive as it is, as much as it like shoots us in the foot, like there is like, I don't know what the answer is to go to art school or not to go to art school, right?
But you went.
I'm the one who went.
Can you think of one or two examples of like those little mistakes that like you're not making because of art school, like like specific things that you've learned that's like really improved your work?
Yeah, there's like lists and lists of these things, and they are so easy to say and yet so hard to internalize. Like the simple stuff is just like in the creative process, like how that workflow goes. Which is to work broadly, to brainstorm first, to work broadly, not to get caught up in details, to pace yourself, I don't know, to manage your energy levels, all of these like little tiny things, to throw out your favorite parts of things, you know, like in painting specifically, you paint something, you like this really nice section over here, to dump that first, to just paint over that, and because the end justifies the means. I don't know. The one thing that you love too much will distract you. It'll like draw your brain into it too much. You'll get lost in it. You'll forget about the rest of the piece. All these weird sorts of things that also apply to like street game designers when I'm looking at their projects and I'm like, oh, you made that mistake. You got totally lost in this one aspect of this design, and you did not realize that the rest of this shit was going to shit. You know, just like working process stuff like that, or how to handle the creative monster when it comes out. Are things that you learn in art school, maybe not in classes so much as just by interfacing with the instructors who are really good advisors, and watching the other students and like seeing just like a flood of people, you know, a couple hundred people who are all serious creatives, just like, you know, living together in dorms, going to classes together all the time, just like pooping art everywhere. Just being in that environment is something that you learn a lot from that you don't really learn outside of art school, because I took a couple of classes in junior colleges around here, and the pool of artists in those things is like 20 or 30 people as opposed to hundreds.
Right.
So the excitement over the creative process, the amount that you feed off each other is much less. That is indispensable. Anyway, but also other weird things, just like things that stuck with me that I wouldn't have been able to learn except in an academic setting, like how to compose values in a painting. Weird things like that, that I could sum up in a sentence, being like, you want to have like, if you have a painting and it's got two different values, light and dark in it, you want to have them not in balance with each other, so that there'll be a focus on one or the other. Bam, but it took me a semester to internalize that one little chunk.
And like most things in art, it's like not about being able to say it, it's about being able to do it.
Right, yeah. It doesn't matter how theoretical you are. Yeah, you can talk your way into galleries, but you can't really talk your way into people's souls.
Thanks for watching. I know I've enjoyed it. I hope you have too. So like it, share it, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/mogoldenvideos. That way you can make sure you won't miss any Art Kitchen videos. This whole project is made possible by the viewers, baby. If you want to join the club, come on over to patreon.com/mo and become a patron. It's more than just donating to some awesome media. You get rewards and connect with an amazing community too.